Hi, my name is Ed Finn. I was Roger's guitar player from 1996 until his last gig, and that was 15 and a half years or so. Some things I remember about Roger: he liked signs. He liked these little index cards that he would write with a Sharpie, little slogans, little reminders and whatnot. I remember one was on his piano in the studio. It said, force yourself. In other words, when you sit down, force yourself to practice. So that was one thing I remember. Also, he had a sign on his TV in his kitchen, little breakfast nook. On the top of the TV, it said, when you turn this on, you turn your mind off. That was one thing I remember that he did that. When we did rehearsals, we never finished. We never finished a complete rendition of a song at a rehearsal, ever. The first time we ever heard the complete work was when we played it live in front of an audience. I often left his rehearsals saying, gee, I can hardly wait to hear what this whole arrangement sounds like, because we never knew until we played it live. It's just something maybe he had a superstition about playing it completely. I'm not sure exactly. But that's just the way it went. I was his librarian, and I put together orchestra books for the band, the small band, and also for larger orchestras that we would play around the country. I would have to prepare the books, and we'd ship them in advance so the players could rehearse their parts. And while I was assembling the orchestra books at his house, on the pool table in his living room, it's the only big workspace I had to work with. I was putting these things together. I'd hear him in the Indian room, which is what he called one of his practice rooms. He had a grand piano in there. And I'd hear him practicing over a small piece of music that I would recognize from one of the songs that we played. It would probably be one measure of music, just 4 beats. And he'd practice that lick over and over and over and over again. I mean, for a half an hour non-stop, working out the muscle memory, working out the fingering, working out to make it smoother, whatever it was he was trying to get better. He was a perfectionist, and he would go after that in the smallest little bit, and he would do it incessantly. So that's another memory of working with Roger. What he worried about most in preparing for a show, I found, was not the music. The music was easy. After so many years playing, it was very easy to play. But he obsessed over the stories that he told between songs. And he had them timed. He knew exactly how long it took to tell the little story. And he obsessed over when to pause, when to wait for the audience to react, when he'd want to try to get a laugh from them, get some kind of reaction from them. So he was constantly working those little stories that he told, folksy little stories between the songs. And so that's another memory. When we played the Reagan 100th anniversary of his birthday at the Reagan Library in Simi Valley, the Beach Boys were on the show, and I was hanging around backstage in the green room. I was milling around with the rest of the acts, and everybody was kind of mingling and socializing. And Bruce Johnston from the Beach Boys came up to me and asked me who I was there with, because I was dressed in a tux. Obviously, I was a musician, and he didn't ask me to pour coffee for him. I wasn't a waiter. And he said, who are you with? And I said, well, I play guitar for Roger Williams. And he said, Roger Williams? He said, oh man, I love the way that guy plays. He says, I've always wanted to meet him. Do you think I could meet him? And I said, well, Bruce, you are a Beach Boy. You can probably meet just about anybody that you want. But I'll be happy to introduce you to him. He's standing right over there. So I walked Bruce over to Roger, made the introduction, and they had a little bit of a chat, and that made Bruce's day. He was very happy about that. One time in Clearwater, Florida, 2 guys walked up to me at the end of the show as I was wrapping up the cables for my guitar, and they said, do you think we can get backstage to see Roger? And I looked up at them, and they said, we're Ferrani and Teicher. And I said, oh, I've heard of you. you know, I said, and I think Roger would be pleased to see you. So I showed them the way back to the green room, and they had a nice little hang for a minute there. One last story I'll tell is when we played the Spokane Symphony, we did, as we always did in every show, a request portion at the end of the show. And Roger takes request, and they hollered out, "Louie Louie." And this is a song that was a hit back in 1964, right about the time I started to play. And the members of the symphony orchestra hollered it out as well. Well, the band that recorded the song "Louie Louie" that was a hit was called the Kingsmen, and they were from Washington State, and it's almost like the state anthem up there. These people go nuts when they hear the song. So they hollered out "Louie Louie," and Roger said, "Louie Louie, what's that?" And he turned around and looked at me, and they said, "Well, play it." And Michael, our bass player, turned to me and said, "Ed." And so I kicked it off. The whole auditorium stood up, the whole symphony orchestra stood up, and they all sang, "Louie Louie, oh, me gotta go now." So we did one chorus of the song, and then we ended the song. We all knew, the guys in the band, we played the song a million times, so we knew exactly how to end the song after one chorus. And the place went up for grabs and cheers, and Roger stood there just looking around, kind of dumbfounded. He was kind of, didn't know what the heck just happened, you know. And he looked at me, and I stared him right in the eyes, and I stared at him, and I pointed at him, and I said, "That was for you." Because as many of you may know, his birth name is Louie. And that's the last story I'll tell. I hope you enjoyed this, and happy birthday, Roger. 100 years, your anniversary. Okay? See you later.